Greetings, I'm Gerard Leonhard, futurist. I'm here in beautiful Cape Town with my equally beautiful colleague, Anton Musgrave from Future World. We are in Cape Town recording another episode of our show, The World by 2030, depicting what the world would look like and sharing foresights and insights. And Anton and me are going to talk about the future of food, as you can see here today, and what it will mean in 2030 to feed 10 billion people. So let's start with a simple question. Is the future vegetarian? Are you a vegetarian?
Good, I'm absolutely not. I used to eat meat almost every night of the week. And today it's turned exactly the opposite. I eat meat once, maybe twice a week at the very, very most. When I look at the children of today, and my own child included in that, it's absolutely once a week, almost maximum. So I think there is being already a fundamental shift in the meat consumed. Having said that, I worked with an agricultural producer client just last week, and when we discussed the future of meat in particular, the audience in that area of the country said very much, we eat meat 5 nights a week.
Well, I think it's interesting. It's very much a cultural thing, of course, right? But what I see happening today, because I go to a lot of different places, is there are traditionally vegetarian places like India, in also Brazil, to a large degree. Brazilians love meat, but a lot of people eat vegetarian. I think there's a trend that we're seeing towards paying what it actually costs for the meat. So you'll go to places where a steak would be $100 because it's done sustainably, or from free running. Free running chicken in Switzerland will cost you $20 for one breast, right? And there's a trend overall, I think, for millennials and what's called zillennials, the kids between 10 and 20. So roughly anybody between 50 and 45 now is asking for sustainable agriculture, sustainable livestock, and for a change of paradigm of what we eat and how we eat.
Correct.
And I think the food industry has been largely responsible for a lot of change in people's behavior. Like Brazilians want to eat like Americans did, lots of meat and lots of burgers and lots of fast food. And that has made them very sick.
Yes.
And we have this statistic showing that basically obesity, of course, as a major killing factor. More people die from obesity than from hunger, which is the most bizarre statistic. Every time I say that, I feel really weird. So I believe, I eat meat. I'm just like you. I'm cutting down on meat, and I'm going vegetarian with a lot of my diet by purpose, not necessarily by conviction about animals, but yes. Maybe I should. But I really believe that the future is vegetarian, or sort of, you could say, cultured vegetarian, like having protein from animals, but not from dead animals. It's a big topic.
It's a huge topic, and I think I talk a lot about unstoppable business tsunamis. And we all know a tsunami wave starts a long way away, very small, and builds as it gets closer to you. And if you're not ready for it, it just smashes into you, right?
Right.
So an unstoppable tsunami of change is the shift towards an awareness about what's healthy and what's sustainable. And those two combined actually changing, I think, eating habits. And of course, it changes many other things. It changes something like packaging. I mean, just have a look at this delicious bit of bread here wrapped in plastic. Now, 2030, I don't think we'll see that at all. So the downstream ramifications for the packaging industry, for plastics in general, fundamental change. So it's awareness about the content of the food. And again, if you look at what's on that label, you'll see a few things. Some of them may or may not be true. In 2030, they will all be true because it'll be criminal for them not to be.
Well, I mean, if you look at the major connection, I always say, between healthcare and food, that hasn't been made for a long time. Healthcare has been about taking pills mostly.
You're right.
So healthcare is not actually healthcare, it's really sick care. Propping people with pills and injections to get them to stay alive, right?
Yeah.
But there's a strong connection between food and health. And now healthcare companies, including Nestle and others in Switzerland, they're looking at customized food, customized medication, personalized eating.
Yeah.
It all hangs together. And I think we're only about, maybe 5 to 7 years away from cracking that major nut between, why do people die that eat like this or that eat like that? And I think if we look at all of the breakthrough moments in agriculture, it used to be 92% of Europeans were in agriculture, 300 years ago, and now it's 2%, right? And now we have robots coming in, automation, and genetic engineering and all of those things, some of them more questionable than others. But basically what that means, I think we can feed 10 billion people, but we're going to see a radical shift towards different kinds of protein generation, vertical farming, and organic farming on the field, right? And using lots and lots of technology to reduce the CO2 cost. For example, if you have vertical farms, like say in the Middle East or North Africa, you can feed the whole village and surrounding area, no transportation cost.
Correct.
Not like today, I get the melon from, South Africa, and, major change there.
I think it's going to be also a question of not either or, but and. So there will be a big shift towards, intelligent farming, organic farming, high volume farming to feed. But there'll also be those bespoke agricultural producers that produce food in the old way, if you like, by choice.
Mm-hmm.
Someone spoke about the elation of and versus the tyranny of or.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think that, so we're going to have more choices, but certainly the shift towards wellness, health, and food we consume. I mean, already the Apple Watch has just released this new facility to measure your glucose levels through your arm, through the skin. Now, I think 3, 4, 5, 6 years out from that, your watch will be telling you what your body needs today. And that'll link into your health insurance policy, and that will bring down your premium if you eat the right things today.
Well, we're also going to see a lot of regulation and different stories that are emerging from how to treat big food companies to give a message as to what you should be eating. For example, a big problem in Brazil, the message is live like an American, right? Eat all of that stuff. And then you're going to look like, not that they all don't look like that, but you're going to end up looking not so good. And you'll be very unhappy. A huge problem in Brazil. And so we have to also get the food industry to change the way that they're portraying what food looks like, and finally actually pay what it actually costs, right? So if you want to eat pork, we'll have to change the prices, so that will change the behavior of consumers who are not so wealthy. So it's a very big topic, because today, if you were to change the pricing of meat, for example, it would hit a lot of people in lower income who like to eat, cheap meat.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't affect us because we eat better meat anyway.
If we eat meat at all.
If we eat meat. But this is a very, very big political topic too.
Sure.
Because in my view, I think we need to get a future that is not centered around meat consumption, not centered around products that are completely full of all these flavors and things that will make it last 4 years, before they're consumed. And this is a major political change that will also see the health of people being moved to the foreground rather than the consumption.
It's interesting on that if you think about the impact of the Ukraine war on agricultural production, predominantly wheat. And where is wheat consumed? Indonesia, India, Africa. How much wheat does Europe consume? Very, very little, actually, because the food has become much more sophisticated, much more advanced. And so the geopolitical consequence of food in 2023 is interesting. By 2030, I think we'll see a shift away from those unhealthy grains, as it were, which shifts agricultural production areas of the world, its impacts on logistics, supply chain, fascinating consequences.
Well, and of course, by 2030, we have a huge impact of climate change on all of the growing of wheat and corn. And for example, Ukraine was one of those places where they grew a lot of corn.
Correct.
Or Brazil again, or other places. So basically, there's already a huge impact, for example, in Italy, where the delta of the Po is no longer arable for rice because there isn't enough water there. And we're going to see huge impact. That means rising food prices for a lot of staples like rice and corn and all these kind of things. And that's something we have to work on collaboratively in a large way. That's also, of course, an impact on climate change, that we have to make sure that this doesn't get worse. And it kind of looks like it will. So the question is, where will those large fields be? Like in the center of Brazil, you have the coast and all the coastal cities, and then in the middle of the country, there's very little being done about agriculture, but it would be the perfect place.
The big opportunity, though, of science in agriculture, science in food production, is reaching a point where maybe we won't even need those very large tracts of agricultural zones in countries, because can be done at high intensity in a micro level. So there's automation, but you think of crop science, the absolute understanding of soil content, chemical content, crop types, weather patterns, hydroponics, and AI, all put it in a pot, give it a good old stir with the old blender over here, and suddenly we're able to produce high-yielding crops almost at the point of consumption, again, changing the game. So it's one of those assumptions I think we make, that we need these vast areas of agricultural production to feed the world. I think that's an assumption that's going to be challenged in the next 7 years.
Yeah, I think it will have to be, because, the shortage of fields that are yielding less and less and less it's a huge issue for how we're going to feed the world there. And then the question of protein alternatives is coming up. For example, cultured meat, processed meat, and fermentation. So Bill Gates has invested, Richard Branson has invested in cultured meat. There's been a lot of scandals and discussion lately about the stuff that is in this meat to make it taste like meat. That's not very healthy. It's actually full of fat and all, and that's a huge debate. But I really believe that by 2030 this will be entering our diet in a good way, not in a way that like it is now. It's actually more expensive than meat, right? Than real meat. Parenthesis. Very, very big change there. How we create protein and how we, the whole food chain. Like the whole logic of Brazil again is to basically grow pork and then ship it to China for very little money. Yeah,
crazy. It's an insane.
Absolutely no sense there whatsoever. And also big change in consumers. I think, when I look at my kids, that are millennials, I see that they're not so keen on meat as I was when I was their age. And vegetarianism is on the rise, whether it's vegetarianism in that sense of not eating meat or eating alternatives to meat. That's going to be a very big trend. So I always say the future is kind of parenthesis vegetarian.
I think it's a risk also to look at it just through the lens of protein or meat, because I think as signals combine. So if you look at the younger generation, again, look at India, Africa, and Indonesia, younger people, tomorrow's bulk consumers, if you like, they're way more fitness conscious. They're way more outdoors conscious. If you look at some of their travel needs, and we'll talk about that later on, but look at all of that in context, and you'll see a shift away from old, unhealthy, highly processed foods in general to way more healthy production of foods, but also then the personalization around the wellness angle. And it's interesting when you look at some of these big shifts. I always say that the big opportunities come from the intersection of industries. So take wellness as an industry, take agriculture, food production as another industry. The intersection of those is where we see very exciting opportunities.
And that is, again, driven by technology, right? So the healthcare business is a lot about technology now, just like agriculture is about technology, not only, but to a large effect. And then the healthcare industry is becoming technology, using smart analytics and remote devices and all of these, and converging the two. I think many of the companies that are in healthcare today will also be in food and vice versa. And there'll be many tech companies who are in the agriculture business. Well, we kind of have that now already, right? And then in the future, maybe one company that will cover all of those sectors. Yeah. And I think one thing to understand when we think about food and healthcare, I always say that a lot of habits that we have about how we eat and how we live, that's a big factor as to how healthy we are. And then all we get is basically a treatment of that sickness. We don't get the fix. And that is going to change by 2030.
I think it's interesting when you talk about that intersection. Take John Deere as an organization. A very high premium in their share price above the inherent value of the business. So they're trading at a premium, if you like. And the premium is because John Deere is not a tractor company. It doesn't manufacture agricultural implements, right? It's a yield optimization company at the moment, and it might well become a human wellness company in 10 or 20 years' time, as they then take the science of food production and deliver wellness outcomes for the consumers, if you like, or users. So already John Deere has fundamentally shifted what they are as a business. It's an interesting question in this whole space. What business are you actually in? Producing unhealthy bread or producing healthy, alert, sharp, fit humans?
Yeah, let's not forget that, we're in the kitchen now. I think everything around
with a very good old blender over
It's very old-fashioned. We're going to see a lot of things in the kitchen that will make our lives fundamentally different. I think that a kitchen robot has his arms over the plate is kind of unlikely for the near future, but a lot of smart kitchen appliances like, ordering stuff, monitoring, also scanning food and seeing what's in it and things like that. That's going to really make a very big difference. I expect fully companies like Amazon, Apple to move into that direction, telling me, that's definitely a big opportunity. And again, it will not be the companies who are currently in the food turf, who are going to reinvent. It's the outsiders, the tech companies and startups who will have the biggest innovations there.
And I think the reason for that is in so many industries, the incumbents view themselves as to what they're doing right now. They've built up a deep expertise. And the issue is, how does that legacy constrain their ability to imagine a brighter, more exciting, different future?
Mm-hmm.
So the legacy of the old business or today's world constrains the ability to embrace whole new crazy ideas maybe. But they all start somewhere. If you think about what we used to think about the internet in 1990, it was clunky. We had typewriters with 3 lines of text. And everyone thought, some people thought this was great, and others thought this is scary stuff.
Well, in a way, it's like, put it all in the blender,
Give it a go.
give it a go, and see what comes out of it.
Add a twist of lemon.
Make a new recipe, put some lemon on. Anyway, this has been fun. The episode on the future of food, agriculture, and healthcare. We're going to have a lot more on this. This is Anton Musgrave from Future World in Cape Town, and Gerard Leonard, originally from Zurich and momentarily also in Cape Town. It's been fun having you here. Thanks for watching.
Goodbye.